Have you ever known something was wrong even as you were doing it, and done it anyways? That's what it felt like the first time I met Ethan. There wasn't a spark of thunder or any dramatic movie moment, just a casual exchange that somehow cracked open a part of me I thought had long gone quiet. My name's Rachel. I'm 34, married for 7 years to David. We live in a quiet suburb outside Seattle, in a house with white siding and a lawn that never quite looks as green as the neighbors. Ours is a good marriage, steady, polite, the kind you can rely on. David's an accountant, practical and even-tempered. He makes sure the car's serviced on time and never forgets to take out the trash. But for a while now, our home has felt like a hotel lobby, pleasant, functional, and emotionally vacant. We talk, sure, but mostly about groceries, bills, and what needs fixing. The words are there, the warmth isn't. And then came Ethan. He was new at the marketing firm where I work, confident without being arrogant, funny in that dry, self-aware way that sneaks up on you. The first day we met, he stopped by my desk to ask for a file, but stayed long enough to ask, "So, how long have you been surviving this corporate circus?" I laughed, not a polite laugh, the real kind. The kind that starts somewhere deep in your chest before you can stop it. It surprised me. That single laugh felt like air rushing into a sealed room. After that, things just continued. Coffee breaks, small talk that didn't feel small, shared eye rolls during meetings. The harmless kind of connection people tell themselves isn't dangerous. But I started catching myself thinking about him at odd times, while driving home, folding laundry, stirring a pot of soup I didn't even feel like eating. It wasn't love. It was awareness, attention, the kind that makes you feel seen again. I told myself it was innocent. Everyone needs a friend at work, someone who understands, without judgment. But when I began checking my phone before bed, hoping for a text, a meme, a "you still awake," I knew I was lying to myself. That Friday, as I left the office, the evening sky was heavy with rain. Ethan was waiting by his car, leaning against the door like he had nowhere else to be. "Need a ride?" he asked, smiling. I hesitated for a heartbeat too long. Then I nodded, and just like that, the story I never meant to write began, with a simple yes that should have been a no. The first time Ethan drove me home, it rained the entire way. Seattle rain isn't loud. It whispers, sliding down windshields like an unspoken thought. Inside the car, there was no music, just the quiet rhythm of the wipers and the soft hum of the engine. He didn't ask anything too personal. Instead, he talked about trivial things, his favorite coffee place, how he hated Monday meetings, the stray dog that slept outside his apartment building. But something in his voice carried warmth, a kind of easy sincerity that made everything sound like it mattered. When he stopped in front of my house, I thanked him, already unbuckling my seatbelt. He glanced at me for half a second too long before saying, "You deserve to laugh more, you know that." I smiled, pretending not to feel the rush that climbed up my throat. Good night, Ethan. That night, I lay awake beside David, listening to the slow rhythm of his breathing. He'd fallen asleep watching a documentary, the TV light flickering across his face. I wanted to reach out, to feel something familiar, but my hand stayed where it was. I wasn't unhappy with David. Unhappiness would have been easier to recognize. What I felt was emptiness, a slow, quiet fading of something I couldn't name. The next morning at work, Ethan showed up with 2 coffees. "Double caramel latte, right?" he said, placing one on my desk. "How'd you know?" "You strike me as someone who hides stress behind sugar." I laughed. "You're not wrong. That small act, just a coffee, felt like attention in a world that had forgotten how to give it. From then on, it became routine. A text before meetings, A quick joke when I looked stressed. We began to understand each other in glances. When to talk, when to leave things unsaid, and yet, with every shared laugh, I felt a quiet dread growing inside me. I told myself I was in control, that this was harmless. But control is an illusion. It dissolves the moment emotion enters the room. One evening, after everyone had left the office, I stayed behind finishing a report. The lights were low, the hum of the air conditioner filling the silence. Ethan appeared at my door, leaning on the frame. "You work too hard," he said softly. "So do you," I replied, not looking up. He stepped closer. I felt his presence before I saw him. The air seemed to thin between us. "You know this isn't nothing," he murmured. I finally met his gaze. I know, neither of us moved. Neither of us walked away. And somewhere between what was said and what wasn't, the first crack appeared in everything I thought I could control. It started small, texts that slipped past the line of professionalism, conversations that stretched longer than they should. "Rough day," he'd write. "Every day," I'd reply. Then came voice notes, midnight calls, the kind that made my heart skip. When the phone buzzed in the dark, I told myself I could stop any time, that I would stop. But I didn't. Neither did he. Ethan had a way of making the ordinary feel charged. A casual joke turned into something that lingered between us. The space we occupied together, an office, a hallway, the front seat of his car, seemed to hum with unspoken energy. One Friday, he caught me at the elevator after a late meeting. Everyone else had gone home. "You look like you need a break," he said. "I think I just need a weekend," he smiled. "Then let me make the start of it better." We walked to a quiet cafe, tucked behind a row of bookstores. The lights were soft, the music low, the kind of place where people talked in whispers. He told me about his failed engagement, the one that ended because, as he put it, some people just want comfort, not connection. I didn't tell him how much that sentence hit me. When I got home that night, David was sitting at the kitchen counter, eating leftover pasta. He smiled when he saw me. "You're late," he said gently. "Yeah, lost track of time at work," I murmured, avoiding his eyes. He nodded, not suspecting anything. That quiet trust, the very thing that once made me love him, now pressed down on me like guilt I couldn't shake. Days turned into a rhythm I couldn't break. Ethan in the daylight, David in the quiet evenings. One gave me adrenaline, the other stability. And in that imbalance, I was coming undone. The turning point came the night of the company gala. I wore a black dress that wasn't too bold, but wasn't safe either. When Ethan saw me, his eyes lingered a second too long. "You look," he stopped, searching for the word. "Like trouble?" I teased. "Like I'm already in it," he said softly. We danced once. The song was slow, the kind that stretches time. His hand rested lightly on my back, and even that touch felt like a confession. When the song ended, I should have stepped away, but instead, I looked up at him and saw the same battle reflected in his eyes. Wanting to stop, yet incapable of doing so. We didn't kiss. Not yet. But something irreversible happened in that silence between us. I went home that night with his cologne still on my skin and a truth pressing against my chest. Whatever this was, it had already gone too far. It happened on a Tuesday, ordinary, unremarkable, until it wasn't. David was home early. I remember because I'd just walked in, still holding my phone, Ethan's name glowing on the screen. A message hovered half-typed. I can't keep pretending this doesn't mean something. I didn't notice David behind me until his voice broke the silence. "Who's Ethan?" The world stopped. My hands went cold. The phone screen dimmed, but the damage had already been done. He looked calm. Too calm. The kind of calm that comes right before something breaks. I opened my mouth, but no words came out. What could I say? That it was innocent? That it didn't matter? Both would have been lies. Is he from work? He asked, his tone even, deliberate. Yes, I managed. It's complicated. Complicated, he repeated softly, the word tasting bitter in the air. Do I get to know what that means? I met his eyes then, steady, searching, tired. The kind of eyes that had loved me through every version of myself, except this one. It wasn't supposed to happen, I said, my voice breaking. He nodded once. But it did. The silence that followed was worse than shouting. He didn't ask for details, didn't demand proof. He just stood there, watching me, as if trying to find the woman he married inside the stranger standing before him. Did you love him? He finally asked. The question hung in the air like smoke. I wanted to say no. I wanted it to be simple. But nothing about this was simple. I don't know, I whispered. He inhaled sharply, the sound small but devastating. Then I guess I don't either. That night we didn't sleep. He sat on the couch, staring at the floor, while I lay awake in the bedroom that suddenly felt foreign. The space between us was a canyon I couldn't cross. Ethan called twice, then again. I didn't answer. The guilt was too thick, the house too quiet. By morning, the sunlight looked different, colder, sharper, like it had seen too much. David made coffee without looking at me. The clink of the spoon against the mug was the only sound between us. When he finally spoke, his voice was low. I don't know what happens next, Rachel, but whatever it is, it's going to change everything. And he was right. Because when trust fractures, love doesn't shatter all at once. It fades, quietly, painfully, until you're left holding only memories of what it used to be that day. I realized something I'd never wanted to face. I had broken something I could never truly fix. Visual prompt 4, cinematic still. Kitchen interior, morning light cold and muted. A woman stands frozen, holding a phone mid-air. A man stands a few feet away, calm but devastated. The air between them feels heavy, fractured. Mood, heartbreak, quiet realization, emotional collapse disguised as composure. It's been 6 months since that morning. The house feels emptier now, not because David left. It's because I did. I packed my things into boxes that smelled faintly of his cologne and the life we once built together. Every item felt like a confession. The photo frames, the wine glasses, the sweater I borrowed and never returned. I thought distance might quiet the noise in my head. It didn't. Ethan tried reaching out a few times, but I never answered. I realized what we had wasn't love. It was escape, a fragile illusion born out of loneliness and the need to feel seen. The truth was, I'd been searching for something that had been slipping from me for years. Something I thought I could find in someone else's eyes. But love. Real love isn't about being seen. It's about staying, even when the light fades. David didn't yell. He didn't beg. He simply let me go, and that was somehow worse. His silence said everything. His pain, his exhaustion, his decision. I'd taken something sacred and left him with questions I couldn't answer. Sometimes I replay that night in my mind. The look on his face, the weight in the room, the sound of his voice when he said, "It's going to change everything." He was right. It did. Now when I walk by the lake near my apartment, I think about the woman I was and the choices she made. The reflection in the water doesn't look like her anymore. She's quieter now, humbler, maybe even stronger. But she's also haunted by what she lost. I send David an email once a month. I never expect a reply. Sometimes I just write, "I hope you're doing okay." Other times I type long messages and delete them before pressing send. He doesn't owe me forgiveness, and maybe I don't deserve it. People say time heals everything, but I've learned time doesn't heal. It just teaches you how to live with what you've broken. There are moments, though, small, fleeting moments, when I remember the sound of his laughter or the warmth of his hand, And for a second, I almost believe that love can survive the ruin we make of it. Maybe one day, I'll forgive myself. Maybe he already has. Until then, I carry both truths, the one I ruined and the one I learned too late, because sometimes the hardest part isn't losing someone. It's realizing you were the reason they had to go.